Hey there, this is Janice Russell, and on the new Facebook, I am still trying to sort of figure out uh, the whole live thing. So we're gonna see how this goes today. But I'm really excited about our topic, which is navigate your new normal without losing your mind. Now, I want to be really upfront here and say I am not a big fan of the word normal, but I'm using it as a reference point because people have an idea of what it means when I say a new normal. But I took a little bit of time to investigate what the word normal means according to definition. So, definition is conforming to the standard or the common type, what is usual or regular. You often hear it in psychological terms where it means approximately average in any psychological trait, and that is including intelligence, personality, emotional adjustment, etc. It also means free from any mental disorder. Now, as you might imagine, it is also used a lot in biological medical terms. So it means free from any infection or other form of disease or malformation or from experimental therapy or manipulation. Okay, so I have a couple of related thoughts about that. I'll share just briefly before we get to the meat of things. The first thing is normal seems to be defined by people. And especially in the medical or psychological world, it's the people making the decisions. And so we're just sort of hoping that they're well informed and, know a lot about their field and stuff like that, which not saying they aren't, just saying, normal is defined by people. The other thing that occurred to me is that the opposite of normal is abnormal. And who wants to be that? Anyway, what I really want to talk about is talking about the navigation process here. And I'm going to weave in a story along the way about my mom. So some of you may know parts of it. Others of you, it may be first time hearing any of this, but it does go in really nicely with this particular idea about navigating to the new normal. So the first thing is we have to do a little demystifying around new normal, and that is that things aren't going to return to normal, which is why I put the word new in front, because you're in a different place when you go through a life transition, whether it's health based, which of course includes the COVID pandemic going on currently, or any other life transition. But during the course of the life transition, you will have learned new things about yourselves and about others. You will have adapted in some way, shape, or form to some different circumstances. You may have been impacted by others in certain ways. So, my mom in June of 2016, she broke both bones in her right arm, which is her dominant arm, and she had to have surgery to replace the radial head and to put in a plate. Now, at the late part of 70s, at that particular time, she would have been 79. Um, she already had a little less use of her fingers because of arthritis. But as you can imagine, having a plate put in and a radial head and broken bones and yada yada, meant it was going to be a long recovery. It was going to include physical therapy and things like that. And along the way, of course, she learned how to cope with some of that in terms of she had to start eating with her left hand. She had to, or I should say, it was easier to wear pants with elastic rather than those with zippers and buttons because she couldn't do those. So she learned some new things along the way, and because of the nature of the fall and the repair, the doctor wasn't actually sure that she would return to her exact functioning from before when this happened. It was going to take time to figure that out. which is part of the next thing, and that is that there's a delay, and I use the word delay, whatever, but basically it's a process. When you're going through a life transition, there's a process. It takes time. And in a lot of ways, it's like the grief experience. Some people say cycle, but it's not cyclical in that way because it sort of does this. And there are lots of different models, but I'll just boil it down to three different points. Number one, often when you're going through grief, there's a daze. And you know what? When you have some functioning in your body that isn't going the way that you'd like it to go or you thought it would go, you definitely experience some grief along the way. So there's the daze part, which is, the shock, the numbness, the denial, etc. There's the distress, which is sort of the suffering and anxiety. It may include insomnia or loss of appetite. And then there is the discover, which is sort of the acceptance, the letting go, the recovery. And those, I mean, I make it sound like they're steps, but they're not, because again, they do this kind of thing. So of course, mom held high hopes that she was going to, beat the odds, do the physical therapy, return exactly to the functioning she had prior. And you'll find out along this little story here that that is not the case. And so she did have to go through a process of acceptance to get there. The next thing is to dedicate some time to self-care activities. Now, in general, we aren't necessarily that great about self-care, and that's why it's even more important during a life transition. And so, I would like to suggest that you go to lifetransitionsorganizing.com. Again, lifetransitionsorganizing.com, and I do have an article there called "Why Your Self-Care is Missing the Mark and How You Can Fix It." And it talks about 3 myths about self-care as well as 3 strategies. So just a little bonus there for you. Number 4 is to delegate, and that is really learning the skill of asking for help because you either don't want to do it all alone or can't do it all alone. Now, again, in the case of my mom having a broken right arm, she couldn't drive. So if she had doctor's appointments, if she wanted to go to church, wherever she wanted to go, she had to ask somebody to drive her because she couldn't drive. Um, Another piece to that was she and my dad live in a retirement community where dinner is a buffet. And you can imagine that getting a tray, moving the tray along, scooping out food, clearly this was pre-COVID, it was impossible. So again, she had to ask for help. And sometimes it's not quite that obvious during a life transition, but there will be things where to have them taken off your plate just makes a huge difference as you're going through the transition. The next piece of navigating is to dismiss your yes responder. Okay, I know that most of us have it. All right. Someone asks us to do something and we say yes without even thinking. Or we're reading something and we go, oh, that would be great. And we start down the path of researching it or signing up for it or whatever. And we usually always need to exercise our no muscle a little bit more. However, during times of life transitions, you really, really need to exercise that no muscle because most of us already have really full schedules and you can't keep adding to that. And again, if we go back to self-care, we're talking about getting sleep and eating right, etc. And part of that is not adding new things that are going to take away from any of that. And the other piece is life transitions themselves usually take extra time. There's something, even if you plan for it, even if it's an exciting life transition, it is still going to take up some extra time. And so as such, you have to get that time from somewhere, and sleep is really not the place to get that from. All right, so the other piece to it, and it's sort of the overall piece, if you want to say it that way, is to develop a new mindset. Now, Some people may develop a negative mindset. They don't want to do the life transition, they're not happy about it, they don't like it, etc. And you can actually stay there in that negative space. Or you can say, hey, it is what it is, and I need to make the best of it. So I'm going to be positive. Or you may even think and say, wow, this is great. Like, this was actually a good thing. Now, again, this is a process. We talked about that. Part of it is a grief process. And so it takes quite a while to get there. And, in some ways, you may never like love, love, love. I mean, I know my mom isn't thrilled that she's never going to get that back, but she's learned to say, hey, it is what it is. I've made accommodations. She still does eat with her left hand the majority of the time. But, she's learned to cope with it and life has gone on. And so, she didn't stay there in these are all the things I can't do. She figured out the things she can do and then has learned and started doing some other things, as a matter of fact. So, since I'm not a big fan of the whole new normal as a phrase, I've come up with some other ideas. So, see if any of these resonate with you. Several of them have the word reality associated with them. So, temporary reality, which, sometimes a life transition is a little bit more temporary. So, that can help us with our mindset. Modified reality, optimized reality, current reality. That would be all of COVID-19, current reality. Um, Altered routines. So maybe you had some routines from before and they're altered during the life transition. Some may go back to exactly the way they were, others may not. Redefined status quo. So I sort of like the word status quo rather than normal. They may not, mean exactly the same thing, but redefined status quo. I'm sort of liking that one these days. A period of possibilities that gets back to that positive mindset. What is the new? A new stable center. And from that, I'm really thinking of mindfulness and being centered and being present. And so the life transition and you're navigating to the new normal is, more of a, hey, I got a new stable once I get there center. How about a new chapter? Flipping the page, got a new chapter. A friend of mine who was turning 50 said it was chapter 50 something. So could it be chapter X something? Like you decide on the X, what the X is. It doesn't have to be a year that you're turning. It could be a new job. It could be a move, whatever. How about plot twist? Now that's what we could use for 2020. Plot twist. And if normal really does suit you best, then maybe the word normal-ish. Not that I'm going to come and like monitor if you use the word normal, by the way. So there you have it. The strategies to help you navigate your new normal without losing your mind. Um, Janice Russell with Life Transitions Organizing. And I've, besides going through with my mom and my dad, I've gone through a number of life transitions myself, which is one reason why why I started Life Transitions Organizing, because I just found that impacted so much of the organization and productivity in our personal and professional lives. But I would love to hear your thoughts about what did or didn't resonate with you about the ideas I put forth in terms of navigating to your new normal. Would love to hear, other things altogether, or what you're like, no, I don't think so, and other things like, oh, I hadn't thought about that. So would just love to hear a little bit more. And I hope you have a great rest of the day, regardless of when and what time zone you might be listening to this in. And you might even be listening to it after COVID altogether. But anyway, thanks so much. I appreciate it.